Hey guys, in this video I'm going to go over the Shadow Priest talent tree for you and try and give you a brief explanation on the abilities and where I think that they can play best. For those of you that don't really care about this, I'm going to pop up on the screen now for you some of those builds I would go with for a single target, 3 targets, or the M plus being 5 and more. And if this video helps you guys out at all, please drop a like and subscribe and leave any comments below, and I'll try and respond to you guys there. But yeah, let's get into the video. Hope you enjoy it. Alright, so in the first row here, we have Fortress of the Mind. All Fortress of the Mind does is buff our Mind Blast and our Mind Flay damage by 10%, and when using either of those abilities, we'll also gain 20% more Insanity. This is your single target talent. I would actually use this for majority of the content in the game. The only thing I haven't used it in is PvP. I still stick with this one in Raid and M+. Very nice talent, especially this tier with us spamming Mind Blast a lot. The next one that you could occasionally use in M+, if you were interested, is Death and Madness. This one is whenever you Shadow or Death and you kill a target within 7 seconds of using it, it'll reset that Shadow or Death cooldown, and it will also give you 40% or 40 Insanity, sorry, over 4 seconds. And so you can kind of spam this on multiple targets in your M+, if you're timing it correctly, and you can get a lot of Insanity, so it's kind of nice. It's more of that high-end skill talent, though, for sure. And then the final option in this row is Unfurling Darkness. This one's the one that you use a lot in PvP just because you can kind of do some burst damage with it, and it helps you apply your dots pretty fast if you're getting them dispelled. So whenever you use your Vampiric Touch, every 15 seconds you'll gain a free cast that is instant and of another Vampiric Touch, and then when you use it, it'll actually do some impact damage on the target too, which is very nice. So that's your PvP talent for that row. And then in the second row here, we have Body and Soul coming up first. This one is honestly very nice. So whenever we powered shield us or an allied player, they're going to gain a 40% movement speed buff for 3 seconds. And you can spam this as long as you don't have the weakened soul debuff. I think this is honestly the best talent for PvE in all scenarios. And Shadow Priest really needs the movement speed, so I would recommend sticking with Body and Soul for the most part. However, if you were trying to be more of that support player, you could run this Sand Lane talent, which is coming up next. And this one actually reduces your Vampiric Embrace cooldown by 45 seconds, and then buffs its healing by 25%. If I were you, I wouldn't really worry about the cooldown reduced too much, because you want to line this up with your 2 minutes anyways, that way you can get the most healing out of your burst and help your team out the most. So I would ignore the 45-second cooldown nerf on it, but I would look at the 25% healing increase because that's pretty massive. So that's more of your support talent in this row as well. And then next up we have Intangibility. So this is actually going to be that PvP talent for you. So whenever you use your Dispersion, you're going to heal for 50% of your maximum health. This one's very good in PvP. I wouldn't recommend it in PvE too much because usually you're not going to sit a full disperse duration in PvE, but very nice in PvP. Alright, and then in this third row here, we actually have a bunch of good talents for Shadow Priest. You'll probably use all of these at some point, honestly. But coming up first, we have a Twist of Fate. This is going to be that Execute talent as a Shadow Priest. So it actually begins really high at 35%, which is awesome. And it's going to buff your damage by 10%, but it also gives you the buff for 8 seconds, which is really cool because what ends up happening is if you're attacking 2 targets, and one of them is below 35%, and you attack him first, you gain this buff for 8 seconds, you swap over to your other target that could be 100% health, you still have this execute buff for 8 seconds. So this is really cool, and you can kind of use this at a high skill level if you're paying attention to the add health that you're attacking. And this is going to be that single target like boss fight talent that you use a lot as well. And then coming up next we have Misery. This one's more Shadow Priest friendly to like new players, and honestly you use this one quite a bit as well. So whenever you use your Vampiric Touch, it's also going to apply Shadow Word Pain, which is nice because all that means is less globals, and you can apply your dots quicker. So this one you'll actually use on like 2 to 3 targets, depending on the boss fights you're doing. And I actually use it a lot with Psychic Link. We'll get into that later though. Next we have Searing Nightmare. This is going to be that M+ talent you take a lot of the time, or whenever you're dealing with usually 5 or more targets. So all this is whenever you're casting Mindseer, you will be able to use this Searing Nightmare ability, and you have to be channeling Mindseer while you're doing this. And it's going to take 30 Insanity, and it'll apply Shadowward Pain to all the targets nearby the current target you're mind searing. And it'll also do a little bit of impact damage. And then the second time you use this, if all the targets have Shadowward Pain already, it'll do 100% increased damage on that impact damage. So this is a very good talent for M+, and whenever you're dealing with a lot of ads. So in this next row, this is our Shadow Priest utility row, kind of. But coming up first, we have Last Word, and all this does is reduce the cooldown of our silence by 15 seconds. And this is pretty nice because we have a very long kick as Shadow Priest. It's 45 seconds. And the nice part about it, though, is it does silence the target when we do use it for 4 seconds. But getting a cooldown reduction on this is very nice, especially in M+, if you decide to use this. The next one, though, is Mind Bomb. Unfortunately, we do not use this one too much because it replaces our Psychic Scream, and it does almost the exact same thing. However, it goes off after 2 seconds. I'll show you guys a little demo of that, though. This one we honestly don't use too much at the current point in time, though. And then the third option in this row is Psychic Horror. This is actually the one you're probably going to choose most of the time. So you're going to gain a stun for 4 seconds. And it's not that bad of a cooldown, it's only 45 seconds. You'll actually use this one most of the time in M+, even though the reduced kick would be nice. Gaining a stun in most situations is very, very good. And this is the one you're actually going to run in PvP most of the time as well. Next up, we have our level 40 Shadow Priest talent row. This is probably my favorite talent row, actually. I'll probably butcher this first one's name, but we'll give it a shot. It's Auspicious Spirits. So all this does is usually whenever we crit a target, we'll see these spirits leave our body and make its way over to the target we just crit. And they'll hit them for a little bit of damage. So we'll see a 15% damage buff to that with this talent. But also we'll gain 2 insanity for each spirit that hits. Actually, it doesn't seem like a lot of insanity, but you'll be surprised how much you gain using this talent. And then next we have Psychic Link. This one's more played than usual in this tier, actually. So whenever you're dealing with, I would say, 3 to potentially 5 targets, you will be able to apply Vampiric Touch to all of them, and as long as they're within 40 yards of the current target you're hitting, you'll be able to Mind Blast, and then all the additional targets with that Vampiric Touch will receive 60% of that Mind Blast damage. Whenever you're spamming Mind Blast a lot during your burst, you'll actually see a big ramp up in your damage here with Psychic Link. And in the final option we got here, we got Shadow Crash. This one's going to be more of that 5+ targets. You'll use this one a lot of the time in M+, but the thing is all the targets have to be kind of close together and stacked because you're going to throw a little ground effect and it's going to hit everything within 8 yards of that ground effect. And on the current use of it, you'll gain 15 insanity as well, which is pretty nice. But this one you'll use a lot of the time in M+. So now we have our second to last row in the Shadow Priest talent tree. Coming up first is Damnation. So this one's actually going to be that PvP talent you run a lot of the time. So it's a 45-second cooldown, and it's just another quick way for you to apply all your dots without being able to get kicked. So it'll be an instant cast that applies all your dots. It'll be Shadowward Pain, Vampiric Touch, and Devouring Plague. And yeah, this one's really, really good in PvP currently, but you won't use it in PvE too much. And then next we have Mindbender. This one's actually pretty much one you use all the time in PvE currently with our current meta and our tier set and all that coming into play. So it's just going to reduce our Shadow Fiend's cooldown by a full minute, which is pretty nice. And then we'll also gain a little bit more insanity when we use our Mindbender. So this one's actually going to be the one you use in pretty much all aspects of PvE, M+, and also in Raid at the moment. The final talent in this row, though, is Void Torrent. Unfortunately, you don't use this one too much in the current patch. It's a really cool ability, though. So it's just going to be whenever you use it, you're going to do a channel over 3 seconds, and then you'll gain 60 insanity. The ability looks super sick, but yeah, unfortunately, you do not use this one too much. Alright, and we finally made it to our last row in the Shadow Priest talents. So coming up first in this row, we have Ancient Madness. This one's going to buff our Void Form just a little bit, so whenever we use our Void Form, the initial crit we're going to gain from it is 30%, but it's going to work its way back down to 0 over 15 seconds. So this one's pretty nice for burst damage, but I actually don't use this one too much myself. I think it could have some play if you're dealing with a bunch of ads and you're just spamming Searing Nightmare, for example. However, I still actually use Hungering Void the most out of this row, which is the one that we're going to talk about right now. So this one is very nice for single target, and I actually find it pretty good in our current meta for M plus and dealing with a lot of targets. So whenever we use our Void Form, we're going to gain access to our Void Bolt, as we know. And Hungering Void is going to buff this because whenever we use our Void Bolt on a target, it's going to apply this damage taken debuff to them for 6 seconds. So it's going to be 10 damage increase for us on this target. However, if the target already has this debuff and we use it again, we're going to kind of extend our Void Form by a second or two, depending on if it crits. So this becomes very tedious to track, but once you get used to it, you'll actually love this talent. But this is going to be more that single target and funnel damage talent that you take a lot of the time. And coming up next, we have Surrender to Madness. This is our final talent. And this one's very high skill cap, honestly. You don't use it too often. I think the only time you could really use this in most scenarios is going to be M+. So it's going to give you the ability to apply this Surrender to Madness to a target. And you have 30 seconds to kill this target. Otherwise, you're going to die, just straight up die. Or if you kill this target even earlier, so like, let's say you apply this Surrender to Madness and you kill the target within 5 seconds, it's going to take this buff off. You'll live, you'll be fine, but you won't have the access to its power anymore. But this one's very high skill cap, so let me tell you what it does. So when you click a target, you apply your Surrender to Madness to it, and you have 30 seconds where you're going to generate 100% more insanity, which is nice, but you'll also be able to cast while moving, which is also pretty nice. But you'll also gain your Void Form ability being Void Bolt. So this is very, very good. However, it's not used too much because I think its only play is an M+. You're not gonna kill targets a lot of the time, like bosses for example, in 30 seconds, so you're just better off taking Hungering Void. But if you want to goof it off and use this in M+, or even just risk it all in PvP, by all means go for it. It's a fun talent to mess around with.